Welcome to InCast. Enjoy Health Education's podcast for dedicated healthcare professionals, educators, and administrators who are passionate about making a difference, encouraging healthy outcomes, and finding innovative ways to engage and empower new families and staff. Here's your host, Debbie Young. She's been a childbirth educator and doula for almost 30 years and came to Enjoy based on her love for educating families.
Hi, and thanks for being with us today. We'll be talking to Ashley Rose Salviti, and she's going to be helping us understand what doulas and birth workers need to know about working with families who have experienced loss. Ashley Rose, can you tell us more about yourself and kind of get into your story? Help us understand.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie, for having me here. It's such a pleasure to share this information. So I got into this work because of my own personal experiences. I had a joyful first pregnancy. My daughter, Jaden, was born. She just turned 10. And, just pregnancy and birth was full of joy for us. And birth was what I expected it to be. Postpartum was a little challenging. But when we found out we were pregnant with my second daughter, I thought everything was going to be the same. We were swimming along in the third trimester and just kind of waiting around for the time to pass. And I realized that I hadn't felt my baby move in a long time. And I really actually didn't know that I was supposed to be counting kicks. I actually just thought that I was supposed to be making sure that my baby was still moving. And once I realized that she wasn't, we went to the hospital and found out that she didn't have a heartbeat anymore. And by that time, it was too late. And so we had a stillbirth in the hospital, and the labor and delivery nurses and the midwife on staff and the doula on staff. There was actually a staff doula at the time. This was pre-COVID. Provided amazing support for us in the hospital. And my sister flew in, and we also had my midwife team that accompanied us to the hospital. So I felt really well supported in the hospital through that birth experience. They made it really special for me. But after the birth, during postpartum, and in pregnancy after loss is what I realized there's a lack of support for, and that there's definitely a lot of missing components for families experiencing loss in this area. And I wasn't exactly sure what was missing at the time, but we took a break. My rainbow baby was born. Weston was born, 21. And in 2023 is when I decided I'm going to figure out what those missing components of care are and try to fill that gap. And so I did my birth doula training and my postpartum doula training, and I got my certification in pregnancy and infant loss coaching, because a lot of this is the medical, the birthing, that side of it. And then there's also the emotional side of what happens after pregnancy loss and really processing the grief. I really think it's important, the work that I do. I've realized that there's not a ton of people that are in this area that specialize in bereavement support during loss. There's a lack of recognizing how important postpartum doula support is after loss. Sometimes people are like, oh, I lost the baby. Like, I don't need my doula anymore. And that is so far from the truth. They can be such a huge, their presence, whether it's during a miscarriage, stillbirth, termination, whatever the situation is, and in postpartum, and then recognizing that pregnancy after loss is never going to be the same, right? Because somebody that's gone through a loss is still a mother, and they still have the experience of birthing their child, and they know what can happen. And so although they may have moments of joy and excitement, they're often accompanied by fear and anxiety. And so It's really important that doulas understand that somebody that's been through loss really has a sensitivity to what their journey is going to be through pregnancy after loss as well. So I'm really grateful for being in this work and being able to provide the support that I know is missing in the system.
Okay, can we step back just a minute? You said you felt supported by the midwives, by your family, by the doula. You felt in the hospital, you had the support that you needed.
Yeah.
But that support kind of fell away
Mm-hmm.
when you went home. Is that right?
Yes, and not everybody has that support in the hospital too. I want to just make, that was my personal experience, but often, people don't get thrown into it real fast. And, it's like you have to make a decision and make a decision, or you're, for whatever reason, you just feel really stuck and like you don't know what you have, what the next steps are. And so having a doula there can really help if you don't have all the supports that I had to slow things down and really honor this sacred experience of meeting your baby.
I think you're right to if it's not an emergency, to step back, take a breath, feel supported, all of those things. And I think that birth doula, probably as much as a postpartum doula, needs to know about families when they're experiencing loss. Maybe they're standing beside them in their birthplace, or maybe they're going to be coming into the home without bringing that baby home. And I think because we don't like death in our culture, and we especially don't like death of an unborn or a newborn, we would just not like to talk about it. Let's just pretend it didn't happen, because nobody's going to really think that it happened, right?
Yeah.
But that's not at all true. So I think that this idea, these concepts that we're going to be talking about, apply equally to birth doulas and postpartum doulas. What do you
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
think about that? 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. So that's a lot. Now, some of those are even before it's been announced. But whenever the loss occurs, tell me what families are going to need from somebody who's trained to work with families of loss.
Yeah, so I think just doulas recognize that it's more than just a medical experience, that when someone experiences pregnancy loss, whether that was in early pregnancy or later pregnancy or stillbirth or infant loss, as soon as they saw those 2 pink lines, they created a whole future that included their baby. And so when loss happens, their entire future changes, their identity changes, their sense of faith, their loss of identity, there's all these secondary losses. So it's not just that they lost their baby, it's that they're grieving the loss of so many things. And just the impact. So doulas recognize the impact of pregnancy loss and have a sensitivity around what that means for the person. They give them space to process the emotions that come up. They understand that they need time to process things, and that it can be really hard to make decisions, and it can be really hard to take care of themselves during this time. So a doula can be there to be next to them, to have a solid presence, to be open to listening, to help advocate for what they need, to help them nurture and care for themselves and the family, to honor their baby, to recognize, whether this was early pregnancy or later, like I mentioned earlier, they still want to embrace this baby, and that's still their baby. And so a doula can really help them to honor that and honor the birth, and then support them during postpartum, and then also providing resources and information. And I say that last because it can be really overwhelming to even think about the logistics of things, and if they are going to do a celebration of life, and to create a altar, or to attend a support group, or to speak with a grief coach or counselor. All that stuff can be really overwhelming. So to have a doula who's there if and when they need those resources, to be able to provide them. So there's a ton of ways that doulas that are trained in this way. And then also, I think one thing I left out is really helping your client to understand what to expect and to be with them through that experience. And so that's really important, to know what a miscarriage looks like, and what the options are, and what each of those outcomes look like. And then also really helping them to plan a birth if they're going to birth their baby, and honor what they can expect, like what the baby might look like, and if they want to hold the baby, and understand that it's really important that they get to create memories during the birth of their baby, because they might not have anything else to remember. So I just said a lot of different things, but there's so many ways. I can go into a lot of detail about how doulas can support families through loss.
Mm-hmm. I am recalling, now that you're saying these things, I'm recalling a family that I have known, and when they were going to experience loss, I offered to come, and they decided that this was such a personal thing, which is fine. It is fine. But without having someone help her, when they said, do you want this or do you want that? She actually said, oh, I wish I had chosen the other thing. I just didn't really understand. It didn't really sink in. Because if you know that you're going to experience your baby being born still, it's really hard to think of other things. So, are there any doulas who specialize just in working with families who are experiencing loss? And if so, who needs to know about that?
Yeah, I think it's a new realm of care. So that's what a bereavement doula does. And often these are volunteer-based doulas that provide this work for free. And there's not a lot of them. And so that's kind of one of my roles, is to train more doulas that can support in this way. So if they already have a doula and they want to have you come along as their doula, it's important that you get trained. I really do believe that all doulas should get bereavement training, because you never know when this is going to happen. And I also would love to see this build as a go-to model of care in the hospital system, that partners with an organization that knows where they can find a qualified, trained doula that knows how to support in this way, and offers that to the family. Like, we have a doula that specializes in supporting through loss. Is that something that you're interested in? And then they can bring in a doula at that point that is just there. And so, yeah, doula synergy, that's kind of my idea for doula synergy, is to grow this training for doulas that prepares them for this type of support, and really gives providers a go-to for finding someone. Because that's the challenge, is not only who is trained, but who is available and where are they located, because there's not many out there. So I think training more doulas, and then having a go-to spot where providers can find doulas that are available and know what they're trained in. So maybe that maybe they have lived experience, maybe they have experience of supporting, the different types of support. All this, the stories are going to be different and situations are going to be different. But somebody who's trained in this way can step in and support no matter what the circumstances are. So yeah, it's a growing field, I believe, Debbie, and I'm here to help facilitate that growth because of my experiences. And like I mentioned, I did have that support. Like I had people with me in the room, and not everybody does. And I've heard situations recently where, you know, maybe the baby didn't die yet, but they're going to. And a doula being there can help them not feel so alone in those situations. So yeah, it's new and growing.
And I would guess that even if there's a small percentage that the baby's going to live, having someone who's trained in like making that mind shift from I'm going to have this happy, healthy baby to we're not sure what's going to happen next.
Mhm.
I think that a person who's trained to help families who are grieving, families who have a loss,
Mhm.
would be equally as beneficial there because they're grieving the perfect birth, they're grieving the perfect baby. They may be feeling there's a loss there, even though they may at some point be able to hold their baby.
Yes, there's grief in all change. Yeah, so even if they do get to take their baby home and it wasn't the experience, there's always grief in that as well. Um, and and I think just helping them to navigate different decisions and knowing that they sometimes they really just need almost permission to like feel better about what they're going through, like you made the best decisions for your baby. And yeah, it can be really challenging and things happen so fast that I think that a doula that specializes in that type of support can help people feel, it's kind of a make or break situation, you know what I mean, during these really big life transitions. And doulas can really validate what you're going through and provide words of encouragement. So it's not going to be pain free. They're not going to bring your baby back. They're not going to make it easy, but they're going to make you feel like you did the best things that you could and help you to paint a picture of this experience that is the best possible picture that could be created,
Yeah.
and a doula can even help like coordinate with the hospital staff. Sometimes hospitals are really good at this stuff and sometimes they're not as good, and helping them navigate what things that they can do to help make this a beneficial situation. One of my clients told me that her doctor asked to hold her baby after he was born. Still, he was not alive. And that meant so much to her for the doctor to take time and honor her baby in that way. And so, just like these little things that the doula might know that they can share with doctors that may not understand the impact of their interaction in this space, how that leaves that birth room for years.
That's
So,
a very stirring example. I
mhm,
think sort of what I'm getting out of it is holding space and bearing witness.
mhm,
And those are probably two of the biggest things, along with resources that the doula can do.
mhm,
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier about secondary losses. I think that's an interesting concept because there was a woman that I did a podcast with last year, and she was 3 days out from losing her baby. And the employer called and said, well, you didn't actually get a baby, so you need to come back to work at 3 days after. And as a doula, and especially now, because I know more now, I would have helped her figure out how to make sure that she didn't need to go back to work. And this mom was so um, strong in her thoughts and feelings at the time. She actually took it to the state, and the state mandated, that's in New York, the state mandated that women who experience a loss are given the same amount of postpartum leave as a woman who's bringing home a baby. And she said that now other states, based on that bill, are
Mhm.
picking up that because it's not right to go
Mhm.
back at 3 days.
You are still postpartum even after loss. And even though you don't have a baby to take care of, you have the additional complexities of grieving your baby. That also takes time and
Yeah.
energy. Um, I met Jackie Mancinelli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she founded Start Healing Together. And that's what her organization does because when she experienced loss, she had to go back to work. She wasn't provided the same leave. And she was like, oh no, we got to change things. And so that's what her organization helps people do is navigate with their employer. And make sure that they get the time that they need. So we're making progress. And I know that in Oregon, paid leave includes miscarriage and stillbirth. I just learned this and I'm so grateful for that because it's really important. It's really important that
Right,
we support these families.
right, right. And I think the lack of that concern has to do with fear around death and
Mhm.
dismay that a baby could die. So again, if we just don't talk about it, it'll
Mhm.
probably make mom feel better to come back and be busy, won't it?
Mhm.
No, it won't.
Mhm.
So, so let's talk about holding space. Holding space for grief, holding space for loss. What does that actually look like for both the birth or a loved one, both in the birth itself and then the postpartum doula? What does that look like?
Yeah. That's a good question. So holding space is a term that some people hate, and sometimes I do because people will say I'm holding space for you, and it doesn't feel like they are. It's like they say it, but it requires them to seek you out to actually hold space. And for me, holding space means being present
Mhm,
and being there and open and allowing for conversation and allowing for emotion and allowing for whatever comes up, and being willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to strike up a conversation, being willing to ask about your baby and to ask about how you're feeling today and what's going on in your body and to listen. And often there's no right thing to say to somebody in this situation. And it's more about listening and just being there to receive. And you know um putting your hand on your heart, like you can be emotional with whoever you're engaging with. It's okay to be human. It's okay to cry. You don't want them to be caring for you. You don't want to flip out and then have to take care of you, but it's okay for you to be sad with them. It's okay for you to be emotional and give them permission to be emotional and to just be with them as they process this. And yeah, recapping maybe what you hear and sharing what you see and just being present with the words that they're communicating, active listening and being there. In the birth room as well, just engaging with them. With If you're there with them, you can physically hold their hands and maintain eye contact and just just being there with them. Presence is really what holding space is all about, in my opinion.
What's the importance of language in loss? And I know based maybe on naiveness or fear, people probably say the wrong thing. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny that you bring this up because um, in my pregnancy and infant loss coach training, I learned that I'm sorry for your loss, which is something that I've always said is not the best thing to say. It kind of puts somebody on the receiving end to say, oh, it's okay, and it's not okay because somebody died. And so, but I do struggle with what to say if I leave that out. And usually it's the next best thing. So, really demonstrating with your communication that you're there with them. So, I hear you. I'm with you. My heart is with you. Just this journey is complex. There's no one way to feel. You have my support. What you're feeling is normal. There's a million ways to feel. Just helping them to feel like you are with them as they navigate this. But also thanking them for sharing, thanking them for being vulnerable, thanking them for expressing what they need. If they say that they aren't capable of doing X, Y, and Z, like recognizing that takes a lot of strength to know what they need and what they don't need, and thanking them for being however they are. I caution people never to say that you understand what someone's going through, because no one really understands what anybody's going through. Even if you've experienced something very similar, you can say, I relate, or I understand that there's many ways to feel, or you know what I mean. But I don't just caution you to think that you've experienced the same thing. I think, as gentle as possible in your communication. A lot of times the medical community will use like the term remains. I've heard them say, oh, this was just a chemical pregnancy. And that totally dismisses what you're going through. It's like, no, it wasn't a chemical pregnancy. This was my baby. So honoring, instead of maybe not calling it a fetus, calling it a baby, and just mirroring the language that the people are using themselves, will help them feel more supported through their experience.
If the parents chose a name for the baby, is it appropriate to ask that question and then use that name, or is that maybe too much too soon?
You mean ask if they named the baby and then use the name?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so, because and you can ask, because the other thing is that it's super sacred to share information about their baby. And so acknowledging that might be something that they don't want to share with you or anyone else. And so maybe asking if they'd like to share your baby's name, and maybe even asking, would it be okay if I use their name? And if they use their name, that's permission, I think, to use their name as well. I'm glad you mentioned that, Debbie, because I think one of the things that is always a fear for people who've experienced loss is that people are going to forget about their baby. So, if you're checking in on someone or remembering if you're a friend and family member, or if you're a doula and it's coming up on their due date or their birthday or some sort of anniversary, making sure that you use that name as much as possible, thinking about you and, the baby's name. Today, you're on my heart. Also, in communication, just recognizing that they might not want to communicate. So giving them an out, like, I just want to let you know that I'm thinking of you on this day, recognizing maybe some of the things that you're remembering to just jog memories and make them feel warm and fuzzy. And then, there's no need to reply. Don't feel like you have to respond, so that there's no burden on them, and giving them just like an open opportunity to communicate if they wish to, and not
Permission to go either way.
Yeah.
I was at the loss of a twin, and in the postpartum visit, the mom was, and so this was probably, I don't know, 7 days, 10 days after, because it was the baby who made it was over 6 pounds and did not have to go to the NICU. And so they did not stay in the hospital a long time. Her main concern was, what do we do? What do we tell this other baby that she has a sister? Do we make it, is that awkward? What will people think? I mean, she had so many questions that I couldn't answer because I'm not her. So we just talked about the options. Well, in the hospital, they actually made a little plaster of Paris heart, and they put both sisters' footprints on the heart. And I said, is that something, because they had a picture wall in their house, is that something you're going to hang on the picture wall? She said, yes, definitely. And I said, well, then if it's on the picture wall, your other daughter will know that there's two. So if you talk about it in a loving and casual way, not making it a secret that she learns when she's 12, that might be better. What do you think? And she said, well, of course we're going to have her on the wall. And so that answered all of her. I mean, she answered her own questions at that point, right? Kind of hard.
Yeah, that's a good story. And people have never thought about this before, like it's all new. And I think it's hard to think about how you'll honor your deceased baby, right? In life, but I think the more that we can honor them throughout the experience, the easier it'll be. It's almost like a part of the grieving process to like acknowledge them. And yeah, I remember I felt kind of rushed into, we ended up, when we found out our baby died, I almost went up to labor and delivery then. Like they were like, we can do this right now. And it was like 11 p.m. So I am so glad that my midwife was with me, who's my acting as my doula, I guess. And she was like, you can just go home now and rest and get the things that you want. And I'm so glad I did that and took the time to rest and then come back and refreshed. And then I kind of had time to think about it a little bit. And I read about other people that had experienced it. And I learned that this was really a special thing that was happening and that I would want to take pictures, because I think if I would have just gone up to labor and delivery, I would have been like, I don't even want to take pictures. And I hear that so often where people don't realize how important these moments are. Or they have regrets, like I didn't think I wanted pictures, or we don't have any pictures of our baby, or me and my partner and our baby. And Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep is an organization, a nonprofit that has volunteer photographers that'll come in, which is amazing. And then I think now a lot of the labor and delivery nurses know, like they want photos, even if they don't think that they do now. So really helping them to understand that this part of the process is going to give you something to hold on to. And that even if you don't know that you want it now, you might want it in the future. So yeah, it's hard to think about how life will be after loss and how to honor your baby after they're born.
Yeah, especially when it happens quickly and you're in that numb phase anyway. In the past, because I've been around this business for a while, in the past, they used to take pictures of the babies, not specific family pictures, but take pictures of the babies and keep them in that person's file for 18 years.
Oh
So
my
the
gosh.
mom could always come back, but they don't do that anymore at most hospitals. And Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep is a wonderful organization, and they're serving in some areas. In some areas, they don't have them, but like you said, maybe the nurses cued that that's a really important piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some hospitals give a bear weighted to the same weight of the baby. Yeah, different things like that. So pretty cool. So,
One thing as a doula that you might want to keep on your resource list is a birth photographer that might be willing, that like your go-to, in case Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep doesn't have somebody. Also knowing that Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep only does black and white photos because first of all, they're easier. But it's just kind of their like one thing about them. And to me, I got both. The nurse took both black and white and color photos, and so I can see both of those side by side. And to me, in my opinion, the black and white photos look old, look classic, look like a thing of the past, versus my color photos bring such an aliveness to my baby who died that I really cherish those photos a lot. And so I know of a local birth photographer that's willing to do that. And as a mom who is only going to get one photo of my baby, I would want to pay somebody extra to do color photos. So that's something that I think is important for our doulas to know, just to have in their pocket as like, this is an option if you do want color photos, or if they don't have somebody else, so just having another option on the side. Because I can take photos with my phone, and I always do that, but professionals are much better at photography. So I think it's important if you're capturing.
That's why I'm not in that field.
Yes, exactly. Me too.
So let's talk about the key skills for compassionate care in loss situations. We've talked a lot about verbal. What else is there?
Well, I think knowing what to expect is important. So understanding what the process looks like and helping them to walk with them, communicating with the team, the doctor and nurse team, so that their clients, the birthing people and the parents feel like they're empowered in making decisions, yet not overwhelmed in decision making. One thing to remember is that they feel a huge loss of control in losing their baby. And so giving them something that they can have control over is important, yet, don't bother them with a million different not important decisions. And then I think we mentioned a little bit about this before, just postpartum support, the hands-on stuff, the real nurturing and caring for the families. So in their home, helping to organize a meal train, helping them to understand how to communicate about, how to break the news, or helping them to break the news. It might be that they don't want to do that themselves, or they want to tell their friends and family, but they want somebody else to notify the school, or they want maybe they work at a school and they want another teacher to tell the students, or figuring out how they're going to share this news, helping them logistically with the funeral or celebration of life, or if they don't want to do that, helping them to create rituals around their baby and how they can really incorporate a practice into their life that honors their baby. Healing, like just eating and sleeping and time, and helping them to do the laundry and to do the dishes and a sweep and to open the curtains so that it's brighter in there, so that they just feel better in their environments instead of feeling like shit on the inside. And then also being in, a house that has an empty nursery and a kitchen full of dying flowers and a dog that needs to be walked and kids that are in front of a screen that really needs some interaction, whatever it is, just helping them through that period and giving the space to talk about the emotional stuff that's coming up through the experience. So all the things that normal postpartum doulas do, but just specific things that are unique to postpartum after loss.
Yeah. So if a postpartum doula has a list of resources, some things will be new on that list. Funeral arrangements. What does the state say about burial and at what age? And so those things doulas can find out at any time,
Mm-hmm.
way before there's a need for them.
Right.
And then just make sure that the parents, you're listening really well so that you're hearing what the parent is
Mm-hmm.
asking so
Mm-hmm.
that you know, because it's easy to do a misstep at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you would do for your own child is not what other people are going to do for their children. So listening first
Mm-hmm.
before you respond, before you give a resource, is really
Exactly.
important.
Yes, yes. Good point, Debbie. Yes.
Postpartum doulas can also be gatekeepers
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes parents are ready to talk
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So even just a gentle sign on the door that says, we would prefer not to have visitors right now.
Mm-hmm.
Please text if you'd like to come see us, and we'll tell you when would be a good time. And
Mm-hmm.
that is not something the parents have to worry about because as a postpartum doula, that's an easy thing for me to put on the door or take off if mom or dad or both are ready to see people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you had mentioned before that it's okay to cry if that's appropriate with those parents, that you can show, you don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
stoic. And I tend to be clinical in
Mm-hmm.
a bit. You know, I tend to put my feeling brain aside when I'm helping people for the most part so that I can be clear, but not in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be able to rein in my feelings so they don't overshadow.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say, you know, when you're working with a family who is experiencing loss, do you go home and have a specific ritual that you do for yourself? Because, as you said before, there's secondary losses here, and you're not that family, but you're experiencing what that family is going through.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Debbie. I was actually just on the phone with a doula friend of mine that is walking with a family through loss, and I told her to call me if she wants to process with me, because absolutely you are holding space for this family and you're having your own experience of this traumatic situation, and it's really hard to hold all of that in. And so I think it's really, really, really important that a doula that is supporting families in this way has an outlet, like a confidential, safe place to really share what they've been through in a way that they can get it out. I think that's really important. And then, yeah, I always say a little prayer, because I think it's important to just honor what you've been through and connect in that way, and light a candle. I'll do that. And then I feel like taking a bath is a way that I can kind of cleanse myself of this, and have some peace and some time for myself. So there's different ways that people can process and rejuvenate themselves. And I think it's important to really think about that after going through a situation like this. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
And even sometimes leaving the hospital room, even in a
Mm-hmm.
birth that went normally, but from the time I leave the hospital room to the time I get to wherever my car is parked,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
try to do some big breaths, like breathe out, because that piece is done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just let it go. And then maybe even take a walk, especially if it's sunny outside. That's another thing that can be really helpful for me. But
Mm-hmm.
bath for sure,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite. So
Yeah. That's good, because those are things that you can do in a moment. Because the other thing that is important to note is that, like, for me, depending on the situation, we had to induce. Like, I was there for 2.5 days, so you might be with a client and then have to step away and then come back. And so you might not be able to go home and take a bath and do all that stuff. So what can you do while you're there to, maybe you're not closing it, but you're taking some time for yourself to refresh.
Right, right. Because
Yeah.
then you come back with a different point of view and you can help them more, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm so interested in the training that you're talking about. And I know that there are probably other trainings out there that we'll probably list in the show notes, but I really want to know about your bereavement training and why doulas should probably all have this kind of work.
Yeah, thank you. So I created just a basic foundational bereavement training that really condenses the basics of what you really need to know, any doula needs to know in supporting a client through loss. So I think it's really important to note that just being there, a doula, our work is so heart-centered that we have what it takes to be able to support in the way that our clients need. Yet it's really helpful to have this training in order to feel confident and not overwhelmed when something like this happens. So basically, I review the 5 pillars of loss support, which is holding space and listening, being there to help navigate, understanding what's going to happen, what the different choices are, and helping our clients take the next best step. Nurturing and caring for the family through the experience, and then during postpartum, helping to honor grief and creating rituals to memorialize their baby, and then providing resources and information. So those are, and then also communication tips. So that's kind of what my training is about. Oh, and we start with talking about loss and the different types of loss, but it's like really short. It doesn't go into deep detail. I do encourage those that want to get into this work specifically to take a more advanced training, because there's so much to learn. Yet I know that doulas have a lot of things that they want to do. And this is a really, because it's online and it's so short, and it really makes it accessible for doulas. So I think that it will leave doulas more prepared and confident and aware of how they can walk with families that are experiencing loss in a way that makes them feel really good. So, yeah, what else? Did I answer all of the questions about the training?
You did, and we have totally been talking about doulas, but I am other people too, right?
Mhm.
I'm a lactation specialist. I'm an educator. Do you think this type of training, just the knowledge that would bring kind of eye-opening to think about loss in itself, would that be beneficial for other types of birth workers?
Yes. I want to tweak it. Like, this one specifically is for doulas, and I know that anybody watching it could, switch the perspective to make it applicable for them. Yet I want to create one for friends and family, and I want to create one for providers as well, because it's a little bit different for them. They could get a lot out of it, yet I am going to create some that are a little bit more specialized.
The future of doula synergy. Doula synergy, that sounds cool about that.
Yeah, so Doula Synergy, it's funny, it actually started as a website, and I collaborated with another birth doula, and when we were first starting out, and this website came about to promote our services, but she ended up moving, and I used it as my website for a long time. And so I finally got my own website, Ashley Rose Doula, and Doula Synergy has always been more than me. Doula Synergy, the word means the collaboration of two parts that is greater than the sum. And so what doula synergy is a way to connect providers, doulas, and families that ensures that all families experiencing loss have a qualified doula to support them through their experience. And so we educate doulas. So we offer specialized training for doulas that want to learn about how to support clients that are experiencing loss. And then we recognize that not everybody who wants a doula has the insurance to cover it. So we'll get funding so that that's a financial barrier is not an issue for families that are interested. And then building a collective of doulas that support in this way. So I told you, I was mentioning this earlier, one of the challenges that providers have is to find a doula that is trained in this way, that understands, the complexities of a baby born at 24 weeks and what that birth experience is going to be like and how to support a client through that. And for me, I know that my lived experience helps me to better understand what my clients are going through. When I was looking for somebody to support me during my pregnancy, I wanted somebody that had already experienced something similar. And so I love the idea of the collective showing, if people are willing to say, I have lived experience of this. I have basic foundational bereavement training. I have advanced bereavement training. I'm a PAIL advocate, whatever certifications, credentials, trainings that they have, they're listed there. And so a provider can easily search depending on what and where the doula is, what they specialize in. If they specialize in birth support, maybe it's only postpartum, so that they can find a qualified doula that can support their client and they don't have to do a bunch of legwork and research. And collaborating with providers so that we can work together. I think ever since I've become a doula, I've recognized that there is a disconnect, and building more of a connection with providers so that we're all on the same page, because we all want the best for our clients and our birthing people. And so really educating providers on the benefits of doula support and how we can really fill the gaps in care, because they're not available at all times. And having a doula is kind of wraparound support. Postpartum extends through the whole first year of birth. And so I recognize how important doula support is during and after loss. And I haven't even got into this, but pregnancy after loss, I think there's a whole other training that can be done for doulas to recognize the specialized supports that are needed for that type of support. But just in bereavement and families postpartum, it's really important that providers understand the benefits of that. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm building it. It's new. I have a website, but I'm still in the process of launching it. So I invite anyone who is interested in this type of support to reach out to me.
So we will definitely put all of that information in the show notes. You'll be up and running and everything will be cool. So.
I hope so, Debbie. Yes. I just wanted to say doula synergy is the missing component in loss support. And I think that the way that we get there is just recognizing that bereavement training is for all doulas, not just specialized doulas. And so it's really about education and collaboration. So I'm very excited about doula synergy. Thank you.
Very, very good. And so can I, besides putting some links down there for the website, can I do like an email address or something for you in the show notes?
Yes, please. You can use my email address.
Yeah.
Cool.
We want to make it easy for people who are thinking about this. Even if they're not ready to take the jump, at least find out about the importance of support for moms and dads who've experienced loss. Mm-hmm. So what else? What's your kind of final word on this as we're running out of time here?
Final word. I just think doulas are so important. Even if they don't have specialized bereavement training, their presence, having somebody on your team, having someone that is advocating with you, for you, and by your side, and your cheerleader, your fan, can make such a big difference. Loss is unexpected, and so it's important that we're never going to be prepared for it. We never prepare for it. And just getting the basic foundational bereavement training can help doulas feel more prepared if they experience loss, when they experience loss, and knowing that we have all that we need already to be able to support. And it's something that we go through ourselves. So to have a community of other doulas, that's the other thing that I'm hopeful for Doula Synergy to provide, is a community of other doulas that all support in this way so we can be there for each other. And just, I see so much benefit in the work that doulas do. So it makes me excited to spread the word about this bereavement training, and getting doulas more connected to providers and families, and the long-term effects that doulas have when we can support families during these huge transitions in their lives. So that's
We
it.
really can help change the trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Ashley Rose. Thanks so much for being with us. I feel like we had a great session together, and I know that our audience is going to really be able to get a lot out of this. So appreciate you being here.
Yay, thank you so much for having me, Debbie. It's not great. I don't love talking about loss, although I do love talking about how we're going to change the future for lost families, and that makes my heart happy. And a way for me to honor my daughter, Lena.
Lena,
Mhm.
beautiful name. Beautiful name.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
This episode of InCast is complete. Tune in regularly to hear more insightful conversations. And be sure to visit enjoyhealtheducation.com to see how Enjoy can help you inspire families and staff through our diverse childbirth and parenting teaching solutions. Or call us at 1-800-326-2082. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official position of Enjoy or its employees. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and does not serve as medical advice, a basis for diagnosis, or recommendation of treatment.